Welcome.
We gonna start fighting on the show.
So we gonna start it like this, man. This is crazy. Welcome to the Reclamation Point podcast, man. I'm your host, Mr. Motown Lee.
Riding shotgun, little brother Ed Garnes. Should I say Dr. Ed Garnes?
And we are trying to reach a point of reclamation
We're trying to get
right
a reclamation
now.
point within our own relationship right now. Because I'm P. Diddy right now, okay?
He ain't even P. Diddy. I don't even know what you call it, but he
Dame
is,
Dash, P. Diddy.
Gotta go European on that one. He really is. But, Ed, what's happening, brother?
Man, I've been through a lot, bro. I had a good therapy session, though. Oh, good, man.
I know, man. I think it's so much been going on. It is. It's crazy. We weren't with you last week due to a illness from a little nephew. So we couldn't be here.
No, sir.
But it is crazy because it didn't stop ish from happening. And it's been going.
Yeah.
And so, with the Reclamation Point podcast, we talk about it, but we talk about it from a place of help. We talk about it from a mental health point of view. We talk about it to try to help you and try to help us understand too, because some of this gonna be crazy. You know what I'm saying?
I don't even know where to start.
Well, I guess let's start Sunday. We just watched the Grammys, and after
the Validation Awards.
Here you go. I told y'all.
The Validation Awards. Can you stamp of approval my talent, please?
I mean, you know, as a person in entertainment, like everyone, like you be in the entertainment, you be in a musician in whatever field. You choose to work in, you want the validation from like your peers, from the, you know, if you're an actor, actress, whether you Black Power and everything, you still want the highest acclaim. Like if you're gonna be in the NBA, you want
the MVP.
The MVP. Okay. You want the Larry Bryan Award, you know. So at the end of the day, the Grammys are important to a lot of people. But it's a lot of things that always, you know, happens or go on. But we won't talk about, you know, all the stuff that went on with the Grammys, because that's what it's about. But it's one thing that I wanted to talk about as it pertains to the Grammys. And people talk about, we saw Quavo do a dedication to, you know, his friend, his brother, Takeoff. And after the Grammys, literally, you know, I mean, it was moving. And, you know, we talked about before brother Offset's passing. But after the Grammys, people were talking about this beef between Quavo and Offset. And we won't get into the beef, you know what I mean? And then they also talk about this issue that Jay Prince is having with Offset also, based on Brother Takeoff's passing. These are, you know, two brothers in that situation and two brothers in this situation. But what I wanted to talk about, what I wanted to address isn't the beef. We won't talk about the beef. We ain't gonna talk about this whole notion about who's right and who's wrong. But what we will talk about is, you know, when we talk about Takeoff's passing, everybody was like, you know,
mixed emotions.
But it was a sad thing, and everyone's like, man, we got to do better. We got to do better. We got to do better. And a week or two later, no, it's been a month or two. You know what I mean? But let's just say, theoretically, it's like a week or two later, and now people are like, how tragic Takeoff's death was, and it happened off of stupid words or whatever. But now they saying that's tragic. But now we're talking about these beefs, you know what I mean? about his death and the things that surround his death and the people involved. And the same people were like, that's sad, that's sad, that's sad, are the people that's posting about these stupid, silly beefs. Yeah. And I'm like, all right, that's the issue with me. Yeah. Because where does it end? Like, are we going to sit here and continue to talk about this, one of the exact same reasons that this brother isn't here anymore? Now we pumping up, you know what I mean? And the bigger picture is like, we do these things for likes, we do these things to tell these stories, and we feed into, as Black people. And, at the Reclamation point, we talk as Black men. Yeah. So we have to address these issues as Black men. We have to address these issues of self-hate and demean.
Yeah. I was about to say it's self-hate is for sale.
And so let's talk about that, man. That is because it's a major issue for me. I'm like, we can't at one point say something is sad and this is tragic and we got to do better in the media and this, and this. And then on the flip side, be like, they beefing, they argue, they this, they that. Like, first of all, it's family business. It ain't our business. Yep. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I'm glad you said
those two cats are related. They not. Yes. They it's deeper than friendship. Yes. They're related. So I'm not even in their business. Matter of fact, I hate to see family beef. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, so as Black men, like, let's start there. Like, what do you think it is in our community that causes us to be this way towards each other?
I mean, Black pain is profitable, man, and self-hate is big business, right? So a lot of times when these things happen, notice we get on this hamster wheel, like we get. Do I need to bring it closer, or is it high enough? Because it's very low. So we get on this hamster wheel.
We better go back to that. Uh-huh.
Can y'all hear me?
We can cut that part out, right? All right, so I'll go back to. So what do you think about that?
Well, self-hate is big business. Like, we get on this hamster wheel where we go back and forth about what we should do, but we're expecting behavioral change without a mindset shift. A lot of this stuff is psychological, man. We have to, when we see other brothers, see ourselves reflected, right? But as we always say on a Reclamation point, Black pain is profitable. So if I can get attention, if I can make more money by talking about violence, killing my brother, it's a vicious cycle that will continue. What has to happen is a mindset shift. But mindset shifts don't happen once you have money. We got to reach people and create value systems before people get the bread, because it's very hard when self-hate has fed you, has fed your family, for you to all become this all-knowing person that is willing to grow and to grow into a different person, to love everyone that's Black. Those value systems have to be before the money gets to you, because once the money gets to you, it only exacerbates who you are.
And just to take it deeper than money, because I think that we have these growing up. I'll say for me, myself, in personal, like growing up in an environment where in the inner city, and I was born to look at. I was taught hate before I was taught love. Okay. Right. I was taught love within the family, right? But I was also taught that these people over here, like, I'm not supposed to like these people. Okay. Like, naturally, I'm not supposed to get along with these people over here. Right. So essentially, like, that was hate, because those people were just like me. Mm-hmm. Those people were Black people, but they just happened to live on another block or in another part of the neighborhood. So I was just naturally taught, like, them your enemies. So I grew up like, them my enemies. But to look deeper, I didn't look at it like them are those guys. I look at it like those dudes are from that block. I didn't look at that they were Black. To be honest, the sense of pride and the sense of Blackness didn't come into play until like one of the homies, brother Roy, he was a gangbanger. Like he was with the business, but he went to jail. And went to jail, he came. But when he came out, he was part of the Nation of Islam.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I used to always see these brothers like, you know what I mean, you know, on the street with with final calls and stuff like that. But I never paid attention to them. I was just like, I don't know what they were doing. You know what I mean? But that was somebody that I knew. You know what I mean? He was a little older than me. And so when he essentially got out and I'm like, you know, man, it was OG. That, you know what I mean? And he was with the business. And now he talking, he's teaching, and I'm like, now sense of, like learning this sense of pride. That's when I recognize, and I also, this is why I love hip hop so much, and also through music, you know, listening to like, I start getting hip to, you know, it was like the Paris, the Lakim Shabazz, the Public Enemies, the lynch mobs, the brand Nubians, right? I started realizing like that's when I recognized there was a sense of blackness. That's when I started being like, oh wait, I'm black. I'm saying I always knew like when I'm looking like, not that I'm, you know, I thought I was something else. You know what I'm saying? I was like, I'm black, but I'm also black and I'm from Compton and I'm from this neighborhood, damn everything else. But when learning from like talking to Roy, and then talking to other people, I'm like, oh, damn. These cats ain't you know what I'm saying? This ain't my enemy.
Yeah.
Right? But it was still, you know, since it was embedded in me so long, like even though I was like realizing we black, they still was like the hate for those people, you know what I'm saying? The hate for certain things was so deep down embedded in me that even to this day, there's times where I still have to like pause and be like, whoa, I'm tripping. Like, I'm not looking at this brother like he's a brother. I'm looking at him like, you know, you're a potential like enemy or somebody, you know, I don't want to be a victim. So, you know, we're going to have to make a choice. So that self-hate, you know, a lot of times we could blame, like we talk about like oppression. We talk about like society. We talk about this demeaning like nature, demeaning like spirit, this thing that we say like, all right, white people put this in us, like, you know what I mean? But at the same time, like they might have planted the seed, but we let this grow too far.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, but the seed is a very dangerous seed. Like I just thought about Do the Right Thing and Radio Raheem, hate, love. We underestimate how hard it is to love. And the reason why it's hard for black men to love is because of what we talk about almost every week, that masculinity is about power and dominance. It's not about vulnerability. It's not about love. So when you don't attach those things to this vision that you have of masculinity, you don't feel like you even have a way to express yourself. It is easier to devalue something that has always been devalued, right? So if we look at society and society demeans us and does not value us, it has an effect on our psychology where we don't even value ourselves. And when you don't value yourself, anything is possible. But reason why we have to focus on black psychological principles is because behavioral change, emotional change does not come without a universal shift in mindset. And so we want all these things to happen, but we have not addressed the core, which is this psychological underpinning of self-hate that continues to be the root of everything.
And so what do you think? So for you, the underpinning, because I made this post and I posted it because my posts are my personal feelings at that moment and emotion. So when I seen it, and I talk about, I made this post about essentially what we're talking about today, and there's so many people hitting me like, well, it's the media, it's this and that, and I'm like, you know, you in entertainment, y'all need to do a better job. I'm like, essentially we passing the buck. And I mean, nobody controls because it's just like the media will tell you, and entertainment and all this will tell you that eat a Big Mac. You know what I'm saying? You see McDonald's commercials all day. You should eat Big Macs every day. I mean, you should eat all of this food that they selling you, right? But essentially, if you don't like burgers, if you don't like meat, or you don't like this taste of this burger, the media can't continue to tell you to eat this burger. You like, I don't like burgers. I'm not eating them. Not good for me. They're not good to me. Not eating McDonald's, right? And so essentially, you have control over what you consume.
Yeah.
So, at the end of the day, like, where does the sense of personal responsibility? Because, we talk about, like, music, we talk about social media, we talk about all of these things, right? You choose who you can follow on social media. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You choose what you post. You choose the music you listen to. Like, if you saying, like, okay, like, all the music is out, it's just derogatory and that's just not true. You know what I'm saying? For every derogatory record or whatever, there's a Kendrick Lamar. You know what I mean? There's a K Few. There's so many other options that you can listen to. Yeah. There's so many different TV channels. There's so many different movie channels. And you have options.
People never choose that though.
And that's the thing. Yeah. So we didn't talk about that. Like why are we choosing?
Well, I mean, when I have gotten you to devalue yourself to the point that you don't see any value, I can control your choices. You know what I'm saying? So, I thought about, driving here. We as Black people have lost like the Panthers had a 10-point program. Very basic things that we as Black people need to do, like food, clothes, and shelter. Freedom, police brutality. The rules have changed where anything goes, right? We have not agreed on basic values anymore of respecting ourselves and holding ourselves accountable. Yes, white supremacy is real and it dictates a lot of the things and mindsets that we have, but the personal responsibility piece is that we as Black people have to set the stage and come up with 4 or 5 things that we as Black people decide. One can be, let's stop killing each other. You know what I'm saying? We already see like this push to support Black businesses. Remember when you started back in the day as an entrepreneur, they wasn't pushing Black businesses the way they push Black businesses because that's something that we decided was a value. But for some reason, we have not decided as a people that our lives are valuable on a mass level. When we decide that our lives are valuable, we will act accordingly. Like the incident that happened with, I don't know if you want to move into the Trey Nichols situation because it's kind of related to what I'm saying, but I hope that's that brother's name, that the Memphis brother that got Tyree. So everybody's wondering, okay, these police officers are Black, but they're still operating from a very Eurocentric mindset, which is that they don't see any value in this brother. Because notice, they ain't do no white boy like that because they know consciously and probably subconsciously there are consequences if you were to kill a white person. So it goes back to valuing ourselves on a very real level. When you value yourself, your walk is different. Your talk is different. Who you hang out with is different. Your emotions are different. Your behavior is different. So valuing ourselves is a start. And then to give you some practical application for valuing yourself, every Black person has to ask themselves, who benefits and who gets checks when we wild out and act crazy? Somebody always gets paid and gets some kind of benefit off of our beefs.
Yeah, but in that situation, I don't know if anybody benefits off of that. I don't know if anybody truly benefits like off people dying or particularly dying. There is, when you look at like Pac and Big, people like they died and records sold more, but I don't think that we lost so much. Like you lose more than you gain by somebody's death. especially as tragic as that, because it doesn't. Takeoff's death created a bunch more problems, a bunch of what ifs. What if, we were all seeing eye to eye, we were all brothers again. And as far as me goes, you know what I mean? As far as what if we were all on the same page? Could this not have happened? I didn't get to say bye to my brother. Like, there's a lot of things that come into play, right? And when we have these situations, I don't think that people truly look deeper than surface. You know what I mean? When you post these, I got to be the first to report it, post it. You don't look into dive into deeper into what you're doing. You know what I mean? First of all, you put negative energy out there, but now it's a thing. You and I, we brothers, love each other to death. If we get into a fight, right, behind the closed doors, we in the backyard, and we fight. It's just me and you, and maybe a family member or two. You know what I mean? But it's only people who matter to us that see this. We can get past that. You and I get in a fight, and one of those family members records it and posts it online and all this, and now you got all these people choosing. Mo got the better of Ed got the better of Mo, Ed beat up Mo. Now I'm reading this, and now my ego is like, what? Ed didn't beat me up. Like, and now it's like, it's causing a divide. Yes. Now it could have been this small disagreement amongst brothers. Like, we hug it out, we cool. Now it becomes this big thing because now both of our egos come into play because everyone else is feeding into it. And so with that situation, it's like, why are we can't continue to promote and push like these things. You know what I'm saying? You got to look deeper. It's more than just this much like quick like. You know what I mean? This is what people gonna like. You know what I mean? I'm gonna post this and I seen it, I'm gonna post it, and that's what I like. And that is, I think there's a beauty in media, social media. There's so much beauty in it. People can connect, people can learn different things. You open your eyes to travel, fashion, food, cultural things. There's so much things that you can learn. There's so many things you can experience. But then there's the negative side. And when we look at the negative side and the draw and the allure of what it's doing mentally, right, to us as people, when you look at her body, now you see young girls who are 17, ain't really even developed yet, saying, I need a body like this. Yeah. But you also seeing adults like, I need to look like this. I need to look, because they see this post and they see that this person got 10,000 likes. You know what I'm saying? And they like, you only got 2 likes from your last post. You're like, oh no, it's because I don't look like this. It's because I ain't wearing this. It's because so this is what I have to do. Now all of a sudden, everybody is looking the same. Mm-hmm. Everybody is putting their life on the line to go to these doctors and go to this and that. Now, mentally, you feel like you're insufficient. You know what I'm saying? Like men and women. So what that's doing to us mentally, like, it's doing more hinder than helping. You know what I'm saying? Like, so
I mean, we're wounded, man. Like when you think about just being a black person in America, you are constantly trying to reclaim your dignity, right? But with the media, there are so many limited conceptions for what blackness looks like. Media only shows the sides of us that are destructive, because that's what I said. Who benefits from this, right? So when you look at movies, when you look at videos, when you look at the things in the algorithms that go viral, it's never anything positive depicted for black people, right? And so what ends up happening, we were raised, right? We were raised in a generation where we had mentors, we had churches, we had social institutions that gave us different images and values of black people that we were not bombarded with the same type of thing. So we had options, right? So not only do we have a lack of options, we have a lack of options in a space where our self-esteem and mental health has been so wounded that success, money, your essential values, power, domination have become so seductive that there's nothing to stop it. And what normally stopped it was a community value system. People think that us coming up, that leaders, I never saw a time growing up where we looked to athletes and entertainers to raise and develop the values of our kids. I had this conversation with brothers I grew up with. We had parents, we had grandparents, we had elders in the community that gave us a value system. What was it? Go to school. If you don't want to go to school, do a trade. So some of the things that we're seeing, it's not just the fault of young people, but it's also the fault of elders. Like a lot of these beefs, it's people old enough to be the other person's dad that's engaged in beef. That's counterproductive. If anything, you should be putting that person up on game. And so that's what I think has changed, is that we're trying to get people that are ill-equipped to raise us. It's not an entertainer's responsibility to raise the black community. It should. Should you have a communal value system? Yes. But that's a tough ask right now in 2023. But I know when I was growing up, my parents, grandparents wasn't expecting no entertainer, artist, or television to raise me. I had to be raised with a certain value system that they gave me.
And so with that, as far as, with that being said, and we talk about value systems, there's something else that I wanted to discuss. It's kind of, all of it is kind of connected. Let's talk about masculinity, right? And when masculinity turns into toxic masculinity.
Yeah, it's kind of like it marinates like a steak, you know what I'm saying?
Because I think that, the definition, I don't know who made it up, but I think in the context of what people say toxic masculinity is, they think it's strictly based on a relationship between a man and a woman, right? And it's just much deeper than that, because when you abuse or the notion of like, I have to be just this masculine, tough, person. I have to be dominant. I have to be the best. I have to be this and that. At some point, that level of masculinity become toxic because you feel like you have to be the upper. It's always got to be, I got to be bigger. I got to be better. I have to compare this to this, right? And that's where it becomes toxic.
Yeah, I mean, the definitions of masculinity, like I always say, don't have a lot of elasticity in America. And so power and domination is all we know. Pride, ego, power, domination. And so if that is the limited conception that you have of masculinity, you'll do anything to fit inside of that project. These beefs are petty as hell, you know what I'm saying? But it's about power, domination, pride, and ego. But also when we look at the mental health perspective, what people are also dealing with is traumas that they have unreconciled. You know what I'm saying? So when you put toxic notions of masculinity on top of just the everyday traumas that we experience as black people, it's a recipe for beef stew. You know what I'm saying? So it's like what we have to do is understand that the definition of masculinity that we're using as black people has never served us well, because it is a definition of power and domination that is based on cultures that are not black. When you have a communal mindset, and I talk about this all the time, it is like some values within the black community that we can use because we have certain psychological strengths. Like resilience is one of them, but the one that we often forget as black people is connectedness to others. This is my brother. This is my sister. I'm gonna find a way that I'm not gonna beat for this person. I'm not gonna disagree with this person to a certain level. But that starts with changing this prideful and egotistical thing that is trapped up in the masculinity. It's so dangerous. We can't even talk anymore. If we say something on this podcast and another podcast disagrees, people want to fight us in the parking lot, right? What is that? Pride, ego, what we feel is being a man. I think that we have to make emotional vulnerability cool, but we also have to do that in a way where we're addressing the traumas that people have, because they say hurt people. Unaddressed trauma is really the root of hurt.
And then that is important because, when we talk about, of course, masculinity, we talking about being a man, and we talking about, because I won't sit up here and act like there's times where my way of thought and my approach has not been, quote unquote toxic. There's times where I have been that person. There's still, I'm not this totally like evolved being, you know what I mean? To be like, oh yeah, like the way I thought or the way I think about it is automatically right. And if you won't think the way that I think when it comes to certain things, there's times where we have to understand we all need to be corrected. We all need to be educated on some things. And, it's just for us to grow. The way we grow is to constantly be in the position to learn. And once you stop learning, you just immediately stop growing. So you might as well just leave this place because your life is about growth. Life is about progression. And I think that when we look at, masculinity and the art of like the toxic point, I think toxic masculinity is fueled by ego. My ego tells me that, I'm right. My ego tells me that, I'm just whatever it is in that situation. And I think that it's far time to address these things as it pertains to us as black men, because we have to. The only way as a community like that we're going to like progress is if we together, right? The only way that we are going to progress, not only are we together, but we understand that everybody, you play the part, you good at what you do, This is a team and everybody, everybody plays a part in this squad, right? But together, we also have to learn.
Yeah.
I do this, we do this thing called Dinner with Friends. And it's just the fellas, and, once a month we link up and we just have dinner, right? Just stress-free. And it's one of those things, right? There's times, we talk about everything from business to relationships to restaurants to wine to watches to whatever you think of. But there's times now we started to do it, and it was a thing where like, people, I'd be extremely transparent. Like the fellas, since I think most of them look at me like, all right, you try different places, you know what I mean? They kind of lead me to be, I'm like, hey, when did I become the planner? Like, you know what I'm saying? When did I have to like, I have the responsibility to be in the text group like, hey, is everybody free on this date? Y'all want to go there? And so at times I'm like, man, my ego's like, this is personal assistant work. Like, this, y'all got me toe up. Like, cause don't get it twisted. Everybody, like, we ain't always on the same page. You know what I'm saying? We'd be like, I ain't gonna be here. I ain't gonna be. And I'm like, okay, like, what we doing? And vice versa. There's times where I probably do the same thing, right? And it becomes toxic. I had to catch myself because there's times like, I'm like, these niggas got me messed up. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I like, what the hell they thinking?
I don't
I'm
work for
sitting there
you.
looking at them like, okay, we don't have to do it. I'm just gonna go wherever I want to go now. But I had to, reel myself in to be like, hey, wait a minute, like this. I know that when we get together, this feels good. You know what I mean? Like we learn, we do all of these things, and the camaraderie, it's important, right? And so I had to like reel myself in and be like, all right,
Check your ego.
I got it. You know what I'm saying? We gonna do it.
It's the burden of being a leader, Mo. You a leader.
Man, but sometimes I be want to just be like, I be just here so I won't get fined. Like, you know what I mean? It's just, don't get it like so. And I understand that it's a lot of responsibility that comes into that comes with like pushing and being a leader. Because even being a leader, you have to understand when it's time to like step back and let somebody else lead. Like, with OMF, One Music Fest, there's times where, I gotta step in and be a leader, right? But there's times where I'm just like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I gotta play my part.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, as a team, like, and we have, an amazing team, but we do have a leader. We got a founder, you know what I'm saying? Jay founded One Music Fest, you know what I'm saying? And so essentially, like, he's gonna be the leader. You know what I'm saying? No problem with that. You know what I mean? So but when I'm doing like other stuff, there's times, and then with One Music Fest, there's times where I have to be a leader. And it's up to me as a man to understand and push my ego to the side and like, all right, you know what I'm saying? Like, cool. Like, this is why this works. You know what I'm saying? Like, and we'll argue, fuss and fight and whatever. This is what we do. You know what I mean? But we're family, and we reach the point to where, all right, cool. This is what you're good at. This is what you're good at. But all of that rambling on to say, like, we all as a community have to reach that point.
Yeah, I mean, but only certain types of masculinity are incentivized. So, like, it's incentivized to be powerful, to be dominant, to be unemotional. We have to put some incentives behind being emotionally available, seeing yourself reflected in other brothers, being vulnerable, expressing emotions, trying to heal from trauma. We have to make that the sexy stuff about masculinity, because the other stuff is where people get payments. And when I say payments, I'm not just talking about money, but it is advantageous to be a dominant dominant man in a society where domination is the goal. So we have to kind of flip it on its head, where vulnerability, emotional expression, being there for your brother, we have to make those things sexy. We have to push those things. We have to push agendas of manhood that we want to see. And they exist, but we have to make it sexy. We have to make it incentivized for folks to do it.
And so this is something else I actually wanted to say, I think, with my camera right here. Before we went any further, because we talked about the Tyree Nichols situation, and then we talk about those brothers that did that heinous act to brother Tyree. And I wanted to, address some, while we're here, because I've seen a lot of people, they talk about, them brothers being Omega Psi Phi. And I have to say, I am not an Omega. I have brothers, like close friends, you know what I mean? Jay, Garrett, you know what I mean? Like I have very close friends that are Omegas, and just like every other black man, that when as you're guilty by association, I do not think it's right that people put like Omega on the line or like blame the Omegas for a horrible decision made by, I think it was like 3 of them. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so let's be clear, Omega Psi Phi as an organization is not to blame for brothers Tyree Nichols' death. I don't know the heinous cops' names, but those individuals as individuals are to blame. You know what I mean? And so when you look at the deaths in our community, because we are always this You know, it's the black people, it's the niggas. You know what I'm saying? Like, they did this. Like, we can't judge them as a whole in the organization when we don't like people judging us. As in, like, when other societies, other people see black people commit crime, a black person commit crimes, they don't look at it like John Doe happens to be black and to commit this crime. They look at it like, this is what they do. So essentially, we can't be that. We can't be the same person, like, in our community.
Yeah, we can indict blue over black though, because you know the blue politics of policing is really what is to blame.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Because what happens when you are a police is that you have to adopt anti-black value systems, right? Because that's what's promoted. So if we indict anything, we need to indict the blue codes that exist within policing. Policing has always been the issue. Richard Pryor talked about policing in his jokes. One of the 10-point programs of the Panthers was about police brutality. So entrenched in policing is this notion of domination of black and brown people. It's a systematic thing. It's not just individuals. So these individuals are actually representative of a system of oppression, which is policing in America.
And you have to, since the ascension of the police, you know what I mean, you had, of course, black people that were policed, and they had to go, you know, find the slaves and do all of these things. When you talk about policing and we talk about police reform, that is what when we talk about physical reform, but it's like there has to be mental reform, mental, right? Because when you're a police officer, every day you're putting your life on the line or whatever, but nobody goes, and you're seeing some heinous things. I think personally, for me, just like with police, military, doctors, any high stress occupations, I think there should be yearly mental evaluations. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It may be even like twice a year, mental eval. Because if you're a police officer, every day you going into shootings, you know what I mean? Seeing car accidents. You're always the first one on the scene.
Trauma.
Seeing all of these things.
Trauma.
And every day you're like, block. I gotta block it out. Man, eventually it's gonna get to you. Mm-hmm. And eventually you are going to take it out on yourself or somebody else. It ain't right, but, you know, it's just like having PTSD as a service member. Mm-hmm. Eventually, like, you gonna have to find refuge in something, whether it's gonna be alcohol, you know, doing harm to somebody else, doing harm to yourself, drugs, food, whatever. Like, you gonna have to find some way to release all this built up energy that you taking in. That's why they look at the highest stress when you look at the suicide rates. I think with when you look at jobs and the suicide rate, I think doctors, attorneys, policemen, firemen.
Is therapists up there? Mental health professional?
I think Wall Street.
Okay.
Were extremely high. I don't know if I've seen, but, you know, I got a mental health professional that I had to, you know, we got to continue this conversation, you know, offline and talk to him about, you know what I mean, his attitude. No.
Are you talking about a certain mental health professional?
You know what I'm saying? But mentally, I think that there has to, in the part of reform, we have to have these evaluations each year. Like, has it been mental? Why? Because a policeman, a doctor, a fireman, a judge, a DA, those are some intricate part in people's lives. You don't want to have somebody who is like mentally unstable
I really believe the police reform has to start with only certain people do traffic stops. Like everybody is not equipped to deal with these particular situations. Some people need to be on the desk, but overall, police reform has to be ideological. It has to be sanctions. It has to be legislation. It has to be policies that take away funding and money if you do not do certain things. It is too many times that we have seen, we thought that reform was going to rain down out of the sky after the George Floyd situation. But why are we back here? Because there's no substantial reform that's not only ideological, but something that's sustainable on a systematic level. You can't fight individual issues unless you change systems. When you change systems, it doesn't matter about the individual because the system has been changed to deal with the issue.
But there will be no reform unless it comes from a federal.
Yeah, that's what
you
I'm saying.
can't allow.
It
You can't
has to
allow.
be
You're right.
sanctioned.
You can't allow cities and these different places to reform themselves. To police
kill
themselves.
somebody at a traffic stop. I'm gonna make it real basic. You kill somebody at a traffic stop. We pulling your funding. You won't have a police force.
Nah. You can't do that.
You know what I'm saying?
You can't do it like
I'm
that.
giving an example that it's just a sanction is a very basic thing. We just have to make a decision that we want to do that. But it's systematic because Black life is not valued. So it does not matter to America. It does not matter to policing because we the ones dying. So we have to make it an issue to the point that we force the issue on a legislative level.
But let's play devil's advocate here.
Go ahead. Hey, the devil been bankhead bouncing today. Go ahead.
You know what I'm saying? If we're going to have that conversation, we're going to have to talk about Black lives not being valued by Black people.
Yes.
We got to have that same conversation.
Yeah,
because that's their number one thing.
Across
you know what I'm
the
saying?
board.
Once you say, man, Black lives matter, you can't continue to kill Black people, and they're like,
White people kill white people, Indian kill white people. You kill in the proximity in which you live.
That is true. But other people they ain't rapping about it, they ain't promoting it. It's not this badge of honor. Even if you look at some of the people who we view as these urban heroes, the people they make the movies and TV shows about, you look at a movie about, you may have a movie about Fred Hampton, about Malcolm X. Ain't nobody they not subscribing like, oh yeah, let's go see this. But then when you look at the movie, we look at Snowfall and Menace and the BMF story and Power, all of this stuff.
It's by design.
This is what we consume.
Yeah.
It's about us.
And it is a balance of personal responsibility, but also systems are designed for us to enjoy that. You'll never see a Denmark Vesey story. You'll never see a Marcus Garvey story. Why? Because we will all rise up if that was promoted on the mass level.
I don't think so.
I think so.
I don't know.
I think so.
I disagree. I mean, this is why I disagree. I think that we're so far gone from viewing ourselves as these the self-love, it has to be addressed. We can't and don't get it twisted. This was definitely planned. There's definitely this script that plays a part, you know what I mean, in how we look and how we view things as it pertains to media. But at the same time, ain't nobody controlling what we watch and what we see no more. We controlling that. We don't have to, you know what I mean? We if we got a problem with Grammys, we don't have to. The stars don't have to watch or go to the Grammys. We can go watch the BET Awards. You know what I mean? We don't have to watch these TV shows. If you look at when Nate Parker did the Nat Turner movie, you know what I mean? Everybody was, I ain't watching that, man. And it was a great, I seen it. It was a great movie, and they chose to look at. It was another
controversy that prevented that.
Yeah, but nobody. Nate Parker was an up and coming actor, and he's had before that point, he had been in a lot of movies, right? Nobody had a problem with what Nate Parker did until that point, and it was like, all right. And then we fed into it because we still could have went, because it still hit the theaters. We still could have watched it. We still can continue to watch it on streaming services and everything, but we don't. The Fred Hampton, the Fred Hampton movie, what was it called? Judas and the Black Messiah.
Yeah.
Right? If you look at that movie, right? A lot of people didn't go see it. A lot of people still ain't never seen it. When you look at Spike Lee's Bamboozled, you know what I mean? And all of these
classic.
You know what I mean? All of these
Spook
movies.
Who Sat by the Door. We can go on and on.
People look at that. They're like, I ain't trying to see that. But at the same time, if it was like a movie about a mass murderer murdering all black people, and it's a black dude that's murdering all black people.
So you think we don't have the capacity to change and liberate ourselves at any moment?
I think that it's going to take a drastic change.
Okay.
That change starts mentally by looking in the mirror and recognizing that we have a problem. Like recognizing amongst us that there's an issue. Recognizing that when we have someone who passes away, you know what I mean? When we have a takeoff death, and we have a, rest in peace, Mike Goodywine, right? When we have these situations, they're not it's time we use this as learn, growth, not be in the minute, not to when you have a George Floyd, we can't use this to say, all right, Black Lives Matter, that's the hashtag, and we're gonna post it on our social and be done with it, and then go right back to the status quo. You know what I mean? Like, it's time that it changes. Like it has to, we have to make a drastic change. And in that drastic change, we have to look at what Michael Jackson said. You have to look at the man in the mirror.
I think we have the capacity to change, and I think that there's change, there's growth happening, but it's not mass promoted. I think we focus sometimes on what is seen, and it's so much out there unseen and positive that we got to big that up with the same.
I agree. My motto, something that I always say, I put it on a shirt. It's me every day. Solutions outweigh problems. So we can continue to talk about the problem, but let's focus on these solutions.
I mean, this is a solution, man. I mean, how many black masculinity, and we're gonna talk about this trauma podcast. I mean, this is part of it.
I know somebody. It's funny. I was like, yeah, I gotta go. I'm headed to shoot the podcast, and it was like, you got a music podcast, and I'm like, no.
Here we go.
And I was like, I got a Black Men in Mental Health podcast. And it was like, oh, word. Because when I say, it was like, you got a music podcast? Oh, God. And I was like, no, I got a Black Men in Mental Health podcast. And it was like, really? Man, like we literally had like a whole 15-minute conversation about it, because that's about the max time you're going to be able to keep my attention on the phone.
Yeah.
This is about like 15, roughly the most 19 minutes. After that, it's over for me.
I got you.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, you just...
Hey, I know to keep it short, get in my points I need to make, and move on.
I'd be like, what? So, you lose me. You know what I'm saying? So, but I think, one of the reasons that, we're doing this is because we need to focus on the solutions. But then the solutions, like, we need to, it all starts, like, it starts with us. And we can't continue to we can blame, because there's a lot of blame to go around. Mm-hmm. But with that blame, we have to put some of that blame like on ourselves. Like, we have to look in the mirror and be like, all right, what we gonna do? Like, what can we do to address these problems? What can we do to fix these problems? What can we do to help us as a whole? Because we can't continue to operate in a place of like we're all individuals. Mm-hmm. Nobody else, it's funny, this past weekend I was on Buford Highway, Sunday, I was on Buford Highway, and I was like, me try. I'm a Yelper, so I'm on Yelp, and I'm like, they got this Venezuelan restaurant. Never had Venezuelan food or anything like that before. But I was like, based on the pictures, I'm gonna check it out.
Star?
Never heard of it in life. And when I went in there, I was like, damn, this place is packed. People was outside just waiting. I'm like, damn. I passed by this place a lot and I didn't even know about this place, right? But then I looked at the whole shopping center. It basically was like all like Venezuelan stores, right? And then people going in and out of them. I'm like, damn, these folks like, supporting like their business, right? And I don't know if it's a lot of Venezuelan restaurants or shopping centers out in here and they gravitate to that one, but it's just like the point of like this, like the support and how they supporting, you know what I'm saying, like their businesses and how they were taking like pride in what's going on over there. When you look at like, a lot of, Asian based like businesses and community and stuff, people really take pride in what they do. Well, it's time for us to take that same pride. Well, I mean, it's time for us to be growing up, right? Yeah. I didn't understand why I used to be like, it was a joke to me. Like, damn, man, there's 10 Mexicans in the car. Or it's like 100 of them living there. And then I learned like the basis of what it was. Cause I was like, I just was like, damn, why are all of them living in the same house? But then I noticed, I was like, it was no really like people our age now. It would be like people like older, younger, and maybe like just like a man and woman as the tweener, right? And as I got older, I understood what they were doing. Like, all right, we're gonna all live here, but we're gonna invest in these businesses. We're gonna invest in this education and things like that. You know what I mean? So like, we ain't take it short, but we had this like camaraderie, togetherness. You know what I mean? And then, but we building up communities. Yes. We buying businesses. We buying these things. And I'm like, shit, who is the joke on?
Well, I mean, I think, like I said before, it is happening because when we have these conversations, I don't know these caricatures of black men that are promoted in the media because none of these people are in my circle. Like my circle, all of us have, we are all different. There's doctors, there's lawyers, there's community service, there's athletic coaches. But what we value is a couple of things. Education, not education to serve white values, education for the sake of knowledge and liberation within our communities. We're all community servants. We're all great dads, and we all try to use the power that we have for the benefit of other black people, right? But that value system started from our parents. It started from a community basis, and we never lost sense of that. So when I see all these things and people saying it's not possible, it is possible. We just have to focus and promote the possibility as opposed to the stuff that's out there.
All right. Well, speaking of promoting,
I don't know where you about to go now.
No, let's get into on the Reclamation Point podcast. Again, you're listening to the Reclamation Point podcast. I'm your host, Motown Lee. And I got my partner, Dr. Ed Garnes, who has been petty this week, but we don't talk about that. We are like
I have been Puffy and Dame Dash this week.
So each week when we do the Reclamation Point podcast, we it's about educating and so let's get into the books of the week. Okay. Because we don't get on your book, I think I'm gonna do a little something different. I think I'm going to skip. No. I'm going to skip the book and sports reporter it. But let's see what you got here, Ed. What we educating, we giving the people.
I have had the week from hell, so I had to go back to the arts, man. So if you can hand me that book right there, because my arms are short, and you a little closer, that bottom book right there. The benefits of being tall. Old school. Collected works of Nicky Giovanni. That's where we going. Boom. Why do I like Nicky Giovanni? Every aspect of black life is in that book. You want your love, it's in there. You want your black power, it's in there. And when we talk about solutions, man, education and art has always been a solution for me, because whenever I'm down, I lean towards the art. That's what gets me back up. So the collected works of Nicky Giovanni is my book of the week. Love her to death. I'm nothing without her. So that's one of the solutions for me. I lean into the art. Her, Richard Pryor, Coltrane is how I make it every day. So what's your different thing? You about to give us a Kool-Aid recipe?
Yeah, man. So, I think I wanted to. I thought about giving the book and doing the book, but I was like, you know what? Let me send a message directly to my people. This week, I lost. The Atlanta community lost a dear friend, a good person, a amazing businessman, Michael Gideon. Everyone probably knows his brother, Alex, and I want to send my heartfelt thoughts and prayers to the whole Gideon family, Gabe, Simon, Alex. But I wanted to address the senseless murder of Brother Michael and the bigger picture in our community. We have to start seeing a bigger value in each other. There is no way that we can let words or disagreement allow us to take a friend, a brother, or somebody that we're literally associated with away from us. There is more value in that person being here than that person being gone. We have to find a way to love each other, to understand like there's a better way of conflict resolution. And just because you own a gun and just because you have the right to carry a firearm or whatever it is, does not mean that you use that as the first resolve. A firearm is for protection. A firearm is for when your life is in danger and you're protecting you and your family. A firearm should not be used as a tool for a black man or any other person to be aggressive towards anyone else. And in the Mike situation, it is just extremely sad that brother has been taken away from us. And we've seen this happen far too often, where the first thing is violence. You know what I mean? And we're far more advanced than to look for violence as the number one option. We have far more power and to look to violence to be our number one option. And so with that being said, again, Alex, Simon, Gabe, the entire Gideon family, Mike's children, Mike's kids, the entire Atlanta community. We lost a good one, and hopefully we live and learn from this. Hopefully, prayerfully, we find those people who've lost, we don't look for anger and revenge. We look for peace, learning, and so when we talk about losing brother Takeoff, or losing brother Tyree, and all the countless black men and black women that have lost lives, like based on just something as small as words and small conflict. May those people, rest in peace, and may we find a better way and better options, and more love. So this has been the Reclamation Point podcast. Thank you to U42 Studios.
Yes, sir.
Thank you to Yes, thanks to Ryan. I don't know my boy Dave in MIA. But I've been your host, Mr. Motown Lee. Follow me on all platforms at MOETOWNLEE.
And I'm Dr. Ed Garnes. You can follow me, Dr. Ed Garnes, all platforms as well.
And like, comment, subscribe, U42 Studios. Oh, no. Thank you to U42 Studios, but join U42.com, YOU42.com. Subscribe, and until next week, man, we out.